Yeah, we're going to start now. We've got Rick Fitz coming as well as Bob Picardo. They're still doing the photo sessions, I think, at the other end of the hotel. So they'll be here shortly, and they'll fall in, as it were, to place.
I'll play it.
Yes, indeed. So I'm going to pick up the volume on this one here.
Sibilance.
He's coming
one,
now?
Two, sibilance.
Yeah. 1, 2, 2. This one here is a little bit more.
Sibilance.
Thank you. How's that up front?
Artichoke.
I can't tell from back here.
It's hard to hear back behind behind these things.
How are you guys? Thank you very much for coming by for the Voyager panel. And I was just saying that Rick Fitz is one of the characters that was on our show as a guest star as well. And I don't believe I had a scene with his character because that episode that week, I think I was doing a B storyline. So if you guys remember which character he played in one of the episodes, I don't know if you guys know. Rick Fitz, who's supposed to be here. Do you remember what character he played on our show? Because I can't honestly remember which one it was.
Rick Fitz.
I'm sure it was an alien, but the question is,
There's
which
Dr.
which
Bob
headpiece was it? That's the question.
Welcome the man as he walks down the aisle.
Bob Picardo, a big hand for the doctor. Dr. Picardo. How are you, buddy?
Hello. According to my schedule, I am introducing a panel in room A and participating in a panel in room B at the same moment in time.
Yes.
We also have a photo op.
And a photo session. Right.
Yes, that's why he has the mobile emitter. He can be in 3 places at one time.
I have divided my photons in half. You know, we have, I think, as big a crowd as the Power Rangers. So go there.
Yeah, how about that?
This is a long and narrow group.
Yes.
It's interesting. It feels different. It feels a little like we're in a bowling alley.
Yeah, standing room only, as it were.
Right. It feels like we could roll a big ball down there and knock all those pins down right in the back.
That's what they said to me when I walked in. Standing room only. I'm like, well, okay.
Yeah, looks like there are a few seats scattered around here, so in case you guys want.
Yeah, there actually, I see.
There are a few seats scattered around.
If you want to
sit down.
poke your
There's some
nose
over
in
here and
be
some over
brave.
here, and so if you guys in the
There's
back
one up
want
front.
to sit, there's for singles. There's single seats that are
We've
available.
also got one more room on the panel if you were on
Yeah.
the way.
Yeah, if you want to sit up here and look outward.
If you happen to be the King of Jordan and you did a walk-on on our show, for example. If His Highness is here, please come sit on the stage. Do you have questions to ask us? Because otherwise, I just like to ask Manu and Tim questions and embarrass the hell out of them.
Ah.
I will.
He makes fun of us.
But if we run dry, I'll ask them.
I have a question for you, actually. You sang so much on the show. It was awesome. How did you, you had episodes where you sang, almost the whole episode.
How did you know that? I was singing off camera. Oh, it was,
How did you do with that vocally?
To be honest with you, I did about 85% of I sang in all the shows myself, except for Virtuoso. Halfway through the show, a real opera singer takes over because it was, I recorded everything, but I just wasn't good enough. It was too difficult. And also because I'm a baritone instead of a tenor, they had to bring down the opera pieces like 2 steps, and then they don't sound like a tenor anymore. It sounds like a different piece of music. So, but I did all my other singing, but I can't lie to you and say I did 85%, but it wasn't, you pre-record it. So on the day, you're actually just mouthing it. So it's not like you're singing it 1,000 times. But my teacher, Agnostola Castagnola, who was the opera singer who taught me all the other songs, he ended up doing the last 3 pieces in Virtuoso because I just couldn't cut it.
I always find that so difficult. Did they do that with Les Mis too? I always find it so difficult just to, not the singing part, but the mouthing part.
No,
Les Mis was actually shot, that was live.
That was okay.
Yeah.
Because I was watching them, I'm all, they're lip syncing way too good in this.
No, that was live.
It was amazing. And Hugh Jackman, who is an amazing performer, his singing alone, that he did that live on the set with that kind of emoting was extraordinary.
And especially since they're going to be doing it more than one take for sure. I cannot, that's unprecedented to make a film of that caliber and do it live. It almost is never done that way.
You know, actually, there's another film. There's one other film, Hedwig and the Angry Inch. They did that way as well.
Hedwig and the Angry
Hedwig and the Angry Inch.
Angry Inch. That was an autobiographical piece written by, never mind.
Yeah, about Manu, okay.
I especially, completely changing the subject. I like the character that one episode when Tuvok and Neelix kind of like merged to the transporter
Yes.
accident. If you could pick any two other characters, or one of those two characters,
7 of 9 in Egypt.
And we're not talking about that kind of merging.
Oh.
Like that kind of merge. If I had to pick who I'd like to merge with, as it were, besides.
two characters you would love to see kind of their personalities.
Oh, man.
Good
That's
question. That's fun. I like good new
He's
questions.
asking which characters I would imagine myself merging with, and also and Bob as well, and who we might want to merge with on our cast if we had a transporter accident, as it were.
Well, I really couldn't be in a transporter accident, I think, because I'm photonic, so I'm just going to beg off. But I love seeing Tim think for the first time today.
And that's asking a lot, given how little sleep I've gotten over the weekend. So, wow, that's...
It'd be
Boy,
pretty
you know,
funny to
I
see Spock and Kirk merge.
I smell a
mean,
burning... There's a burning smell coming out of Tim's cranium right now.
Yikes!
They'd like rip each other apart, right? If Spock and Kirk merged, it'd just be like they'd just be pulling on his hair the whole time.
That is really, that's a tricky question.
But you have to think about it, that Tuvok and Neelix was the ultimate
That is the
perfect
ultimate...
pairing because they're the most dissimilar
Yeah.
characters. You know what I mean? Tuvok he speaks with such gravity and such precision, and Neelix just natters on like a mosquito. So they were the perfect rinse. What a wonderful actor Tom Wright is.
Man, he's amazing. Tom Wright, I just ran into him a couple of weeks ago on one of the lots. He is such an amazing actor. He had such a tough time that week. I really felt for him. Of course, when all the guest stars came on our show, they were mortified when they had to, all the dialogue had to be done exactly, word for word. And you can't change anything unless you call in and ask the producer's permission. So it was very, very specific how things had to be spoken in terms of how the acting went. And he had just reams of dialogue that was, much of which changed the night before or the day before. So, and he had a very tough time doing the dialogue and switching back and forth between our characters within a same sentence. Within one sentence, he would make the switch back and forth. I don't know how he did it. To this day, I still don't know how he did that, but he managed to pull it off. It was amazing. It was awesome, yeah.
I remember calling the producers because I had an improper piece of grammar in one of my lines, and we argued for an hour about whether I could correct the grammar. And I finally trumped them with the reason that the doctor's grammar was programmed. My grammar would be like someone had programmed me with a grammar book. So I would not say something colloquially. I would simply say it the way it was meant to be said. But the fact that I had to argue for an hour about changing something to the correct form gives you an idea of how resistant they were to letting us change anything.
Yes, very, very specific. The show is written in a certain manner, which is, I'm going to say, an elevated sort of English in terms of its style, because we have to believe that these alien characters with all these incredibly wild makeup jobs and everything on screen, if you didn't have them sounding somewhat in a sort of classic sort of style, it would just look ridiculous. You had to believe that it was serious. What they were saying was serious when they didn't, that they had looks on their faces or makeup that was so outrageous in some cases. So there was a reason why they wrote it and why they stuck to what they wrote very, very specifically. It wasn't just something you just come in and start rephrasing things or speaking in a casual sort of tone like you might speak in a contemporary drama. So it was very,
It's why you see a lot of theatrically trained actors on Star
right.
Trek as well.
That's right.
It's
Stage
very-
trained, yes.
It's half theater, it's half film.
Yeah.
The performance is somewhere in the middle there.
Yes.
So will Renegades be similar in that aspect?
Renegades might be a little more loose in terms of the way the dialogue is, because the show itself is a different concept, and it's taking place in a different time period than Voyager, in a different part of space, and the characters are very different. So
We will still have someone arc an eyebrow.
yes, we will still have that. And we have a whole bunch of, you know, several alien characters running around as well. And each one of them has a way of speaking, a certain way of speaking. So there will be a lot of difference in the way everything is done that way. Yes.
Robert.
Oh, yo.
Hi. Oh, sorry. I was wondering, many years ago in Dallas, you regaled us with the story of the character and voice that you did in the movie Legend.
Oh, God.
Did you use that voice?
Can I use that voice? Well, it was my version of did anyone see Legend? I believe only Tom Cruise and his mom saw it. Okay, Legend was in the early 80s. It was a fantasy movie ahead of its time. I mean, if it had been released in the Lord of the Rings era, I think it would have done well. Ridley Scott directed it. Tom Cruise, I think, was 19. I played a humpbacked water witch who came out of the water and ate Tom Cruise, or tried to eat him, but not in a fun way, as a gay director once said to me. And I had to be in this amazing makeup that took on water, and they nearly, I think, could easily have killed me on that movie. I was in 3 feet of water on a steel trap door that was about 3 feet by 3 feet, with a little metal thing that came out and had we called it the butt pad. It went around my rear end and tied me to that so that I couldn't fall off the trap door. Then they pushed me up through the water. Now remember, these are steel plates passing each other with 16 feet of water below, 3 feet above. And they're pushing me by, and I hear Ridley Scott say, "But I'd like him to just come up out of an absolutely crystal clear surface of water." And I'm thinking, fine, you'll lower me in weight about 8 or 10 minutes. I mean, I had no air support. I had no way of letting them know if I was in distress. I pointed out to the very chubby, very British first assistant director. I said, if you lower me down below the stage floor, if you take the trap down enough in order to let the water clear, I said, when you push me up, I'm in a giant sponge that takes on the water and makes me flop around like a fish. I said, if my arm goes through those plates, you will cut my arm off. And I said, if I go backward, if my head kicks back, you will decapitate me. And I swear to God, this is what he said. Yes, I suppose you're right. Well, then we'd better rehearse this. Now, I'm working illegally in this country, and I'm not officially there. I've been snuck. I mean, literally, that's the way it went. When I got to customs and said I was there to work, I was detained for 4 hours until the appropriate bribe had been paid. And then I went back through customs and said, no, I'm here on holiday. When I worked at the theater, my name did not appear on the call sheet as Robert Picardo. The role of Meg Mucklebones, the Swamp Witch, was played curiously by an actress named Meg Mucklebones. So if they killed me, they could have buried me behind stage 16 and no one would have known. So I said, you know what, guys, I'm not going to do this. And then they redesigned the shot, and I live to tell you this story today.
Oh my God.
And here's the voice.
Oh, and what a fine fat boy you are!
Yes. Each of us tell us one of our favorite memories. Manu, what have you got?
Favorite memories working on Voyager. Honestly, let me kiss up to this Yale guy over here that's so fine and so Bob Picardo. I was 20 years old when I got the part. I was just starting really in my career. I had done maybe 4 TV shows and a bit part in a movie. And Bob, maybe 4 episodes in or something, when I went to work on the show, he was the only actor that I recognized. I wasn't a huge Star Trek fan. I was a fan of all the films, but I hadn't watched the show. So I knew that I was going to work with this man, so it was exciting for me. And maybe 4 episodes in, he said, you know, young man, I can't do it very well, but he said, you know, every once in a while an actor comes along that comes onto the show, and he wakes us all up a little bit. And you're one of those guest actors, and that just rocked me, you know. And it's given me, you know, strength to keep on, you know, getting better. And as a kid, man, when you know, you have a story like that with what's the stage actor? not Mathau, but
Oh, Jack Lemmon.
Jack Lemmon,
Yeah.
same type of deal. So that was one of my favorite moments and pushed me forward as an actor.
I honestly, most of our memories are, I think, the goofing off behind the scenes rather than shooting individual shows. I mean, I have memories of specific episodes that were challenging that I remember doing and enjoying it. I remember nights when I was so tired that I couldn't get something right to my own satisfaction. I remember when we were doing one of my favorite shows, Tinker Tenor, Dr. Spy, the Doctor's fantasy episode, where the producer called me and said, what would some of the Doctor's fantasies be? And I said, sketching 7 of 9 in the nude without thinking. Now, the fact that I didn't have to think about it was probably a bad sign because it showed that I'd given a little too much attention to the topic. But I remember one night I was in a dead sleep because I had a really long day, and I'm sure we all had it, where I had fallen asleep in my trailer at about 11:30 at night because they were shooting a little thing I wasn't in, and they woke me out of a dead sleep. And it was a moment in the show where all hell was breaking loose, so it had to be very high pitched, and I literally could not get it together, just couldn't get it together for the Doctor's sort of high-paced, breathless, I'm going to save the world now energy, which I liked. I delighted in that aspect of the character, but I couldn't quite stoke it up at that point. So I remember that moment. I remember that moment of like, boy, this is harder to do than I thought it was.
The scene I had a scene with Katie in the episode Meld, in which Tuvok loses all control of his emotions. He has a very long speech he makes to her, encouraging her to let him out to commit murder, in fact, and to pull this task for her. And it was a very interesting moment because I don't have those chances to do that very often as Tuvok, obviously. So it was a nice break from the tradition to be able to have a chance to do it. But my absolute, quite honestly, the one of the memories I have about the show that are dear to me is when we first arrived. On the day we arrived to meet with Rick Berman as a cast, and he gave us a tour of the set. That day, I drove into the parking lot that's on the Paramount lot, and I got out of my car, and I was right next to Ethan Phillips, and he and I were both going to the stage. And we just met each other. We're talking about being on the show. We were walking down this long alley that goes right alongside our stage, and we were talking about what a wonderful experience this is going to be. It's probably going to be a 7-year run, and we were speculating on what we were going to look forward to, and thinking about how very cool this was to have this opportunity. And at the very last day of shooting, we had to take everything out of our trailers. Just at the end of that day, we had to take everything out of our trailers and put it in our cars, and that was going to be it. And so the very last day of shooting, I agreed to get together with Ethan, and we would empty our trailers at the same time, and we would walk back down the alley talking about the 7 years we just had, the same way we did the first time we arrived there. And I did that with him, and that was the last time we were there, and it was really wonderful. That I'll never forget.
I think there was something special in that. I think we all probably remember those last few days heavily.
Yes.
I just came on for one scene where I played you in that game of, I don't remember the name of the game, but Catal or Kaplop or something like that. But I spent the same thing. I wasn't walking around with Johnny, which would have been more fun, but I spent time as soon as I was done shooting that scene just going to each of the sets and seeing him one last time and knowing that I'd been a part of something special that I knew was going away, and just saying goodbye to it. It was, I can picture myself in the Paramount lot, so I think we all had that, like, wow, it's over.
Yeah, it's over.
What's next, sort of feeling.
The last scene I had was with Katie in the briefing room. I mean, not in her ready room, right off the bridge. And that was a very difficult day because I walked in and I could hear the saws and the hammers and the things coming off. The parts were coming down from the other sets, and part of the sets on that stage had already been taken down. So there was only a few pieces left, and that ready room set, and I think part of the bridge was still up. And we had to shoot the scene in there, and I was kind of taken aback as I walked in, and I said, we're not even done.
The
We're not
bridge
really
is
done shooting.
The ship is falling apart.
The ship is falling apart. So, Captain, I don't know, we're not going to be able to make it through the quadrant. We don't have a bridge anymore. It was a mess, man. It was really, I was taken aback. It kind of set me back a little bit because I didn't expect them to be doing it while we're still shooting, you know? And I mean, all right already, we're going to be done in a minute.
No, they were already getting ready for Enterprise. And,
Yeah, that's
and
right.
there was definitely the feeling of don't let the door hit you in the head.
Yes, yes.
No.
I never talk to
none of us.
them.
I hate it. Working with all these
Yes,
people.
I don't Facebook friend them. I don't.
Every once in a while, we have to do one of these things. We just
Yeah, we have
get
to
it
be-
over with. Get the
yeah,
hell
we
out.
have
I
to
call
be.
them all, they just don't return my calls. No, the Voyager men, Tim, Robert, Ethan, me, Garrett, Robbie, we get together a couple times a year to have a steak, to have an unhealthy male meal at, although Tim often has fish, by the way, just to show how cool he is. But we do this a couple times a year at a famous old Hollywood restaurant. So we do get together. We call it the Voy Boys evening.
Boy, boys. And we also see each other all the time at these shows. So all over the country, sometimes in other countries as well. So we do see each other quite often.
We always end up in little goofy sci-fi movies together too, of some other kind. We
Yes,
all
we-
just did this really goofy sci-fi movie that could be really funny, but it's fun hanging out on set again with each other and shooting it. With you, Garrett, and Tim.
Oh, man.
And a
I was
little
invited to
puppet.
the red carpet premiere, by the way, of Sharknado. Yeah. And I replied to my agent. It was while I was here. It was Friday night, a one-night only showing at theatrically in LA, and I was invited for the red carpet premiere. And I emailed back, I'm a bald man, but I'd rather wash someone else's hair that evening.
I think I was invited to something I just worked on with not long ago with Garrett and Gary Graham, which was, and Kevin Sorbo was in as well. And it was absolutely horrid. Hey, they called me about this gig. Yeah, you're playing, there's somebody offer. It's a straight offer. And I said, as an actor, it's really cool to get a straight offer because you don't have to go and read for it and such. And it makes you feel good that somebody recognizes what you've done and say, well, I'm gonna give them a gig and it's a freebie. So I said, yeah, sure, it pays really well. It's about 3 or 4 days. It shoots in the desert in Nevada. Okay, fine. You're playing at General. And I said, oh, well, it's great, General. That's groovy. I can do that. I played military characters all over the place. And I didn't actually look at the script or anything like that. Until after I agreed to do it. And they signed the paperwork, and then he sent me the script, and I was absolutely appalled. The whole time I was biting my tongue, and I said, oh my God, this is horrid. But, on the upside, I figured, well, nobody will see it, so who cares? And sure enough, they had a premiere, like Bob said, they had 2 premieres in Los Angeles, which I avoided going to. So, and that was it. He sent me a trailer, and I looked at the trailer, and that was bad enough. So I figured, well, the trailer looks that bad, the film can't be much better. So, it's a payday, and we move on. I don't get paid for gardening, I get paid for acting. And if a gig comes along, we do it. And generally, I'll take it if it's not really, really bad. Unless, of course,
if it has
I take it
some
without
sort of potential, and you know this, right, because you've read the script.
Yes. Most of the time you've read the script.
I have my own next time read the script first story. It was also for another movie of this quality called, I think the original title was called Shockwave, and then it was turned into AI Assault. Changing the title didn't help the movie. Anyway, I heard that Michael Dorn was going to be in it, and George Takei. My agent said, look, you're only in the first 15 pages. You're on an airplane sitting and doing a lot of exposition with your research assistant, who's going to be played by she was a Baywatch girl. Something Paul, Alexandra Paul, very nice lady. So I said, all I do is set up the plot. I'm some sort of scientist who has created this new fighting machine. It was right after the second Spider-Man movie came out with Dr. Octopus. So everybody had this cheap software to make mechanical legs and arms come out of nowhere. So this was a cheesy movie with these war machines that had long tentacle arms. However, I was supposed to be in the plane taking this new military hardware for its final programming in Australia. The plane was hit by lightning, and then the plane goes down, and then I'm out of the script on page 15. That's what I was told. So I read to page 15. Now, here's the fun part of the story. I'm about to start in 2 days. I got a call from the wardrobe department, and they say, we need to know your hat size. And I say, my hat size? I said, well, I'm on an airplane, just talking. I don't think I'd have a hat on. And they said, oh, no, this is not for that. This is when you come back at the end of the movie as a robot zombie. Now, imagine my situation. If I go, what? I haven't read the script. So what did I do? I went like this. Yeah, right. When I come back as a robot zombie at the end.
Of course.
So I almost crashed the car. I go home and I look in the last 6 pages, and sure enough, I come back as a robot zombie. But here's the really stupid part of the story. Instead of having a makeup session and casting my head in plaster or alginate and making a copy of my head and making an appliance, they're going to go to Walmart and buy a bath cap, put it on my head, and glue a couple of blinking lights to it. Because why would they need my hat size? That's exactly right. They wanted to buy a bathing cap, painted flesh tone, and put some blinking lights for my zombie moment.
I gotta see this. What was it
When
called?
you do it,
I gotta see it just for that scene
the
alone.
last scene in the movie is probably the most embarrassing thing I've ever done on film. My children watch it over and over again. I literally do this. Because I got one take at 4 in the morning and I was freezing my robot nuts off. So yes, it is terribly embarrassing. And now you're going to give the director, Jim Wynorski, a couple extra $100,000 by going and renting or buying the movie, and I will not get a nickel, and I should never have told the story.
AI assault, everybody. AI assault.
As a matter of fact, all three of us are currently working on a sci-fi low-budget comedy called Unbelievable. And Manu's got a great character in there. Bob is one of the anchors in the piece. Very funny. Opens it up with the premise for the story, and it's a cute little piece. It's got it has a secret character, and I'm not going to even tell you who he is, but the character was totally unexpected and never part of the original script. They added it in later on, and it really changes the entire story. But all three of us are actually shooting this currently in Los Angeles on different dates in the last month or two, and then I think next month as well. It's a very cute little piece, and I know that for the story that I was talking about that took place in Nevada, when one of the scenes we were shooting was a big long monologue that we were doing right next to a gun range for a paramilitary training camp, and they were firing live automatic rifles, fully automatic assault rifles all day long. And we were doing, the actors were on this green screen doing their speeches while the gunfire was going off. And the director just sits there and says, well, just work it into the speech. Work the gunfire into the speech. He did it like 3 times. Gary Graham is sitting next to me, and he looks over at me, and I'll never forget it. And I'm going to steal it, and I'm going to keep it for myself. He looks over at me and said, so it's come to this. That's exactly what he said.
What you should have done is pretend to get shot and dropped out of camera frame. So much for the monologue.
One of the things I tell actors who are starting out in this business, I tell them, I said, there's one thing you want to keep in mind. I said, you can be on top of the world one day and not get your phone calls returned the next. And that is literally the truth. You never know. It goes up and down, and you could be in heaven. The next day, you've got a room for a dressing room that's got no couch, no chair, no bed, no nothing. And you got to find some cushions to lay on and take a nap. I mean, that's where it can go. That's the entire range of possibilities here. So, you know.
I do the analogy of keeping plates spinning. Have you ever seen one of those guys in the
yes,
park
like this here,
keeping
yeah.
all the plates spinning? And you try to keep all your contacts out there. You're
That's
trying
right.
to keep working, so you're trying to call everybody. You're keeping all these plates spinning. Hopefully one of them heats up. You just jump on it for a while, and sometimes you have like 7 hot plates.
That's it.
And you got to choose between one of the plates, and
Right.
then there's no plates anymore.
That's
You
right.
gotta work for like
That's
a year
right.
and a half. So
Yes, indeed.
thank God I got a lot of plates.
My problem is I've gotten to the stage in life where I don't remember. I know I'm doing something. I have projects coming up, but I don't remember what they are. But I am doing a web series called Inspector Spacetime, which is a takeoff on Doctor Who, which looks funny. I watched their first season, and then we shot a teaser for them. So I am doing that. I keep forgetting to say it. But what's fun is all the Victorian clothes and the British accents and all that. So I'm hoping that that will be as much fun to shoot the whole series as it was to do the little teaser episode.
Manu and I shot the trailer for Fifth Passenger as well, not long ago, which is also a sci-fi drama. Very cool story. And hopefully they'll get that funded as well and put that together.
Yeah, The Fifth Passenger is going to be an amazing film when it gets done. 5 guys. It's basically, you ever seen Hitchcock's Lifeboat?
Yeah.
You do that in space with an alien. And I don't know, it's going to be really, really cool. Have you ever seen Moon?
Yeah.
It's also going to look a lot like Moon. It's me and Tim Russ and hopefully Ethan Phillips and a couple of other actors. It's going to be a great film, but we're just getting started on that. Seems like we're starting to talk about what we're doing next, but I have a ton. Well, if that question happens, we'll go for it. But how about other questions?
More, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
That question. Okay. I'll fire it out. I've got a lot of things happening. There's a Western coming called Six Gun Savior. Next month I'm going to film a Western called Hideaway. I had a World War II film called Fortress that just came out. I just produced a $500,000 film called Benjamin Troubles that's out in about 6 to 8 months. We're about 2 months away from going to market with it. About a kid that finds a pair of magic blue jeans and they produce money on the hour every hour. Like a Guy Ritchie romance, like fast-paced gangsters, but with romance and magic pants. Then this unbelievable thing is coming probably next year about giant plants that come down to Earth and change us all into plants. And it's 20 Star Trek actors or something.
At least 20, yes.
And it's a sci-fi comedy like Airplane, so we're all taking the piss out of ourselves.
With a surprise, yes, with a great big surprise character, and that's great.
Yeah, huge.
And I'm working with Manu on Six Gun Savior as well.
Yeah.
Supernatural Western, as it were. It's the first Western that I've ever had a chance to be in. So when he called me and said, would you like to be in? I said, heck yeah. I haven't done a Western ever. So it's a very cool piece. So.
It was cool to wear all those outfits. You know what I didn't know about? I always go to potty humor, but this is very strange. I had some of the authentic, Western gear.
Yeah.
You have so much stuff on, the gunslingers, and you have so many suspenders and pants and belts and gun belts that when you went to the bathroom, you couldn't take all that stuff off. So they actually left some of the back of the pants split, so you could just split the back of your pants.
Oh, is
The
that
old
for
West. The old
Wild West technology?
Yeah.
We did, yes, I got a series, working on a web series in the fall. I think we're going to shoot sometime in the fall called Crypto Historians. We're going to shoot it in San Diego. It's Jimmy Diggs producing it. He used to write for Star Trek as well, freelance. And that is a turn-of-the-century sort of piece about H.G. Wells' stories that he wrote. And the premise is, what if what he wrote about actually happened? And so it's partly time travel, partly dealing with the Martian walkers, except that it's intermixed with history, actual history. So it's a combination of the two together. And I have to play a World War I flying ace named Jacques Bouillard, a black fighter who flew for the French Air Force against the Germans in World War I. This is an actual true story, true character. And so he's the one that I'm playing, and that's an amazing part. I know, we can go from that to, let me see, what was the other one? A rock and roll sci-fi character with a gold mohawk, like a blonde mohawk. That's what I'm waiting for to come by. That shoots in Iceland, I think, sometime. Yeah, that's the comparison. You can go from one side to the other, quick.
I also have a cool action scene in a movie called Abstraction that'll be out in a couple months with Eric Roberts, and that was fun to get to work with that crazy man. He's pretty cool.
What was the name of that comedy again?
Unbelievable.
Unbelievable. It's so weird. It's unbelievable.
It is weird.
I have a movie that just came out. I know it's available online, but I understand the DVD came out also. It's called Rock Jocks with Felicia Day, who's sort of a nerd queen. I did a thriller here in Texas I shot last year called Infiltrators, where I play, it's sort of a lower budget Da Vinci Code type thing, where I'm a part of a group of religious figures. I play a minister who's looking for stolen religious treasures that disappeared during the Second World War when Hitler was appropriating all these things. They hid them and then some of them disappeared for good, so I'm trying to find them. So that was kind of a cool thing, although it was shot here in Texas in the middle of July last year. So I was a very sweaty priest. I'm going back on The Mentalist in the beginning of September. I play a recurring character on that, although I don't recur that often. And we have, in addition, unbelievable. Oh, then we have Renegades, and I'm also supposed to be part of this project called Space Patrol. Have you ever read anything or seen anything about Space Patrol? Space Command.
Space
I'm
Command.
Sorry, based on the
the
original Space Patrol series. They upgraded it to Space Command. That's a very interesting project. I've read the script and it's terrific. It's just a matter of, and these things that are self-funded with Kickstarter and all that, it's very unusual for them to shoot in the time frame they originally told you, because if they don't get all their funding, then they simply have another campaign or whatever to get, because they really have, that has very ambitious visual effects. But I think we're shooting the first of the projected 4 of them in November of this year. Space Command.
I'm also, last but not least, I'm also raising money for a film called Dark River, and we're a quarter of the way to a $400,000 budget, and it's going to try to be the new, oh God, what's the name of the movie?
Deliverance.
Yeah. And I'm going to try to twist these guys' arms into coming down and
I don't want to play the guy who has to squeal like a pig.
And I don't want to play the guy that makes him scream like a pig.
Thank you.
I'm hoping that you're going to play one of this hotel clerk or a creepy this guy that goes our creepy red herring.
As
and
long
I'm
as
hoping he'll play the tough sheriff of this.
As long as there's no sodomy in my scene, I'll consider it.
This is definitely. You guys could check. You should check all of our websites, possibly the Facebook pages as well, to check on those, because like Bob and Manu said, we are involved in a lot of stuff that's ongoing. And sometimes these projects will just take off out of nowhere, and other times they might be delayed. But we're all working on different things.
I think we're also all directing and producing, or at least producing, right?
Yes.
So if there's
degree,
any
yeah.
Texas oil millionaires out there that want to get involved in our productions, we are more than willing to look for investors. At least I am at the moment.
That is the most exciting thing, although I don't know, our time frame got bumped. I'm also working on a project with Joe Dante, which I brought to him, that I know Tim is involved in, but we didn't talk about that because the start date got bumped on that. It's called Monster School, and it's sort of a X-Men for PG-13 X-Men. And it's funny, and it has a lot of good sci-fi actors in it, and Joe Dante has agreed to direct it, so that's pretty exciting.
Yes.
The girl that asked the question even looks bored at this point.
Yes, she does look bored.
Just wake her up, give her a shake, see if she's still
All they
with
want
us.
to hear is they want to hear about, like whether we're going to be on
CSI.
NCIS.
Yes, NCIS.
Yes. I just left Mark Harmon 10 minutes ago, and I was in Mark Harmon's first television movie, the first time he acted on TV. How about that? I just remembered that, called The Dream Merchants. I was married to Morgan Fairchild. God, I've been around for a long time.
There you go, yes.
Yeah.
So with these other avenues for money coming in, is it actually changing the business, or is it pretty much the traditional system y'all shoved away?
Not at all. It's completely changed. It is an entirely different field and environment now than it used to be when all of us, when myself and Bob particularly, started out. The actors that come up to me and talk about, how do I get started? How do I get into this business? The first thing I tell them is that everything is very different now than it used to be. It is almost all electronic. When we go to read for things and audition for things, a lot of times they're just done by video and an MPEG that's sent away to somebody to look at, and we're sometimes cast right off of that. We rarely ever see the producers and the writers. Sometimes it's just done by tape. Where so many people can make their own projects now, and the internet is wide open, and it will all be one and the same very soon if it isn't already.
Don't tell them that, they're all going to get our role.
Yeah. Well, you can. That's the thing, is that everybody can throw their hat in the ring. And that goes for music as well. I'm also a musician. Same thing with music. Before, it costed a fortune to be able to make a record. To record it and press it was a fortune. You needed somebody to back you on it. And now you could do it with a laptop and a MIDI controller, and you're all done. Everything is different now.
For instance, Star Trek, 10 years ago, 12 years ago, whenever it was, God, I'm getting old. Sorry. I auditioned 4 times, I think, maybe 5, and you got to go to casting director, and then you got to go casting director, and then you got to go to network, and then you get tested. But anyway, you could keep coming back. I did a bad guy on One Tree Hill, a reoccurring bad guy for 7 episodes on the final season, and all it was is I went in, I sent a tape out to the showrunner over there. They were looking for somebody. They called me back. I was in. So it's very much become an electronic town.
Very
So,
much.
Yeah.
And so many more projects that are
I don't know if
being
that's
produced.
Kickstarter's fault, but definitely the computer has taken over.
Yeah, majorly so. It's just
They
a
don't
whole
want your
different.
headshots anymore. They're like, we got it. It's on the computer.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
How do you filter what you want to do and not do, like a spinning place?
Often we don't. If you've seen some of the stuff we do, we don't.
That's the problem. We don't filter enough.
I use my girlfriend. My girlfriend usually goes, you can't do that. If you do that, if you can't go out to Missouri for $100 a day and look like an asshole in this movie. I'll pay you to stay home.
I was offered an episode of Femme Fatales with a sex scene in it, and I remember my wife said, "Go ahead. What are you going to the gym for?" My older daughter said, "Yeah, maybe it'll mix things up for you a little bit." And my younger daughter said, "If you do this, I will never speak to you again." So she won.
Can we talk a little bit about sex scenes in movies? They're incredibly difficult to do. I had to do a sex scene in Benjamin Troubles, and it's 8 hours under hot lights pretending like you're making love. It gave me such a respect for porn actors because they do it for 8 hours.
Yeah, for real.
And it's exhausting faking it for 8 hours. I don't know how they do that. And between you got makeup all over your body if you didn't go to the tanning shop enough, which I did, but I just turned beet red. So they're in there painting you between kisses, and it's an intense and then it looks so beautiful and so sexy. It's not.
Back when Tim and I were doing porn,
Together in the same scene.
I was just a young man watching.
and we understand why you were intimidated.
He was doing research.
Right.
For his love scene later
In fact,
on.
when we did the porn sci-fi classic Star Trek Deliverance, where Tim surprises Neelix in the kitchen.
I missed something. I was turned
The
around.
kitchen is a room. It's not a sexual euphemism, you guys. Or does it mean something else here in Texas?
That was a good blooper reel, I got to admit. That was a good
They don't
blooper
know
moment,
that, Tim.
yes.
We don't have to share.
Yes, indeed. Man. With the hat on, yes.
Prop failure?
Prop failure.
Prop failure, like any of them are good.
Oh,
Did you guys ever have to be Borgs?
Yes, I was Borg. I
Okay.
was Borgified once.
My favorite prop failure was my Borg outfit. First of all, it was a ridiculous thing because I was half Borg, right? And they decided that the makeup, the wardrobe designer decided to leave. I was all Borg everywhere except all the way up to basically the underside of my scrotum. My left leg was just bare human, and I was like this 21-year-old kid with skinny white legs, and I was all Borg with this white leg. And then they would have people follow you around because things would fall off your costume. So when you went to the bathroom, you'd have these little trailers following you behind you to make sure that you didn't lose any part of your Borg outfit. And I don't know, that was the funnest part. It wasn't fun, but that's the best outfit story I have.
God, Bob had a whole bunch of props.
It's funny, what I remember is not really a prop, but we couldn't hide anything on the Star Trek set, especially in sickbay, which was very open and had a couple of consoles. And I remember the hardest thing was if something occurred to me, something personal, and I had to take a note. This is before, smart devices were, I guess I had a Palm Pilot, I don't know, but I wouldn't bring that to the set. But I remember I was trying to hide a pencil one day. because I had to take notes when I left the scene, and they started to roll, and I had no place to put the pencil. And the camera was moving all over sick bay, and I didn't want to ruin the shot for the sake of a pencil in a Star Trek set, right? Which is about a couple hundred years out of date. So I stuck the pencil up my sleeve. And during the scene, I gestured the pencil and hit another actor. I remember that moment, and I also remember all of our uniforms were very tight. And we had this sort of undergarment, you know, that you saw up here that snapped under the crotch. Now, I'm not a fan of anything that snaps under the crotch to begin with, but I do remember one time I bent over in my costume and I tore it. I tore it from here to here. So I was completely open here. From bending over in one shot and tore my costume over. So I remember that was another day when I thought, we operate within very, very strict parameters here, and it's best not to exceed them. A lot of the actors would come back from Christmas break and they gained a couple of pounds and their uniforms no longer fit.
It's very hard to hide an erection in a Star Trek.
Yes, there's none of that business going
I should
on.
never have brought up the porn show.
Well, you can't just do the whole flip-up maneuver because there's no. It's just a real tight.
I had at least
Well,
two.
it's a Sunday crowd.
I had at least two. I had at least two doors that
God made them.
malfunctioned. I had two doors that malfunctioned. I've been going through them. You know, I turn around, yes, Captain, turn around and bang, right into the. Whoever's back there wasn't pulling the cable fast enough, and so at least two of those. And I think once I pulled a phaser out and it came apart. Half of it went that way, and the other half was in my hand, and it was not a good scene either. Yeah.
I have one more. During the first episode, the kid that died, the board boy number 1.
What was his name?
Board boy number 1.
Board boy number 1.
He comes at me with this big, and usually they make these things out of foam rubber, and I don't know why they didn't this time, but a big piece of machinery from the ship. And I was very boardified and in my whole board place, and he dropped that thing right on the top of my head. It was a big, hard metal. I turned right directly to the camera and went, "Oh, mother!"
That was not approved by production, by the way. They did not approve that line change. Yeah.
5 minutes, guys.
You got it.
All right, 5 minutes. We've got time for a few more.
For both of y'all, you worked so much with Jennifer Lynn as Tess, and then everyone loved Seven of Nine coming in as well. But what did you miss after Jennifer was on the show so much with your scenes with her compared to working now with the Seven of Nine later? Your characters too were very close to Tess's characters.
Yeah, he's asking about. We worked with Jennifer Lean for several years, and then we worked with Jerry Ryan, and he's asking what did we miss about working with Jenny in this particular case compared to Seven of Nine. And I'd love let Bob.
Well, I worked quite a bit with both of them. Cass was the doctor's first confidant. You know, she came to sick bay for him to teach her how to become, you know, his medical assistant. But really, she was mentoring him in his developing humanity and kind of waking him up to what he might be entitled to as a full-fledged member of the crew. So I loved working with Jennifer. She was very young when we started. She was 19. She kept very much to herself. She was very quiet. Yeah, people don't realize how young she was. So she, and a terrific actress, but like a child to me as a grown man. You know, I was already 41, I think, which made it really creepy. I mean, we did one thing, projections, where she's supposed to be my wife, remember? And she kisses me. I thought that was really creepy. I was, you know, I felt like her dad. She was very sweet, kept to herself, and there were two problems with it. I don't think she ever really, the producers didn't know how to communicate with her directly, the writer-producers, and I think she never presumed to offer any suggestions or ideas for her character. And, you know, Brandon Braga, they would take us to lunch before certain of the seasons. I remember Brandon did later in his run, where they would say, you know, what do you think, if you had any ideas or whatever, what you felt might happen for your character next season. And I don't think Jennifer was really adept at that because she was so private and quiet. And secondly, she had a built-in character flaw, which was she was from a race of people that lived 7 years. Now, in the pilot, we met Ocampans who looked middle-aged. They must have been, what, 3.5 or 4 years old. So Jennifer should have been aging approximately 7 years every season. And I think that the writers kind of bailed on their own concept. When Jerry came aboard, I was afraid that since the Doctor lost his confidant, that I would have no one to unburden myself with, and Brannon suggested that I find a way to relate to our new character, to Jerry Ryan. Well, everyone looks at Jerry Ryan and knows one way they'd like to relate to her, but I actually suggested the idea of the role playing, that the Doctor took it upon himself to teach her how to be a human again, which I thought was so stupid because he's not a human himself. But it fit in with his arrogance and his inflated self-image that he was a better teacher of humanity than a human. And that's where all those role-playing exercises came from. So I ended up having a lot of fun. I had a fun arc with Jerry.
The hardest thing for me in terms of working with Jennifer Lean, and all the things Bob said was true. I mean, she was a wonderful actress, incredible voice. This woman had a voice of just gold. And it was difficult for me in that sense because when she left, because she was actually leaving. I mean, it was difficult because we started the series, and when we do a scene where she's, saying farewell, it's not going to be on the story anymore, and she's actually not going to be on the story anymore. The combination of those two things, it makes it very poignant in working with her. She was very talented and very unpredictable as an actress, and also as an individual. You never knew what she was going to say or do whenever she said or did it. It wasn't very often, but she was very eccentric in her personality, and a lot of that, some of that came through as Kes, but I think more so just behind the scenes, more so than on screen. She was a wonderful person. Jerry, the only thing about coming on with Jerry is that I thought initially, because she was similar in terms of not having the emotions that you would normally have because she's Borgified, that she was somewhat similar to my character when she came on initially. And so that had to play itself out and become more, so that she would become more human-like as she went along. But I thought she was very similar to my character when she first came on board as one of the regulars. Yes? Are there any other Voyager projects?
Voyager projects in the
No,
industry?
not specifically for Voyager, no. No, I don't even think people have actually pitched anything for Voyager either, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
With the reboot, I guess we don't have time, but first, what do you think of it? And then two, is there any way that you've heard of a cameo where you could come in for like a...
Oh, you mean the features?
Yeah, the new feature films you're talking about, what do we think of them? I think they're incredible, amazing pieces of work, and I think I like them so much because really my favorite cast is that original cast, the Spock, Kirk, and that's Star Trek, right? That's Star Trek. And he's done a great job of casting actors that play these characters so well, and I don't know, I'm a huge fan of those films. And the fact that last one made me cry 3 times, you can ask her. I was bawling in that movie.
I was.
And as far as me getting a role on one, it would take a lot of luck and a lot of networking and luck there too to even get in a room with J.J. Abrams and it'd be tricky.
I am a big fan of the new movies. I like the second one even more than the first. I agree with the casting; it's extraordinary. I think J.J. is brilliant. I'm dying to see now what he does with the Star Wars movies because I was not a fan of the last crop. So I'm curious to see what he does with that. I know it's got way more action than Star Trek usually has, but I think in order to broaden the audience, that's a smart thing because you don't have to be a Star Trek fan to really love a new Star Trek movie. And I know that some of the hardcore fans resent that a little bit. They resent what we've had to trade off in order to get that broader audience. But I think ultimately, let's face it, it's great for the brand name.
Yes.
It keeps the brand name in the marketplace. It makes people revisit all of our shows. We have new fans. So it's ultimately really good for the franchise that such a wonderful, popular, exciting director has taken the reins.
Yeah.
I've learned my lesson never to say anything about playing a cameo because I spoke to a British writer, and if you said nothing, I think he turned "nothing is impossible" as far as appearing in a cameo in the movie. He turned that into that I was sitting by the phone waiting to become, to be called to be in the movie. So I now no longer comment on it. I don't even say nothing is impossible. I would say they're doing just fine without any of us.
Yeah.
And it's entirely likely that no other Star Trek actors from earlier versions will ever be in any of the movies
Yes.
because they don't need us. So I think that's probably the safer thing to say as far as being misquoted in the press.
I said what Bob said, by the way.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with both these guys about the new films 100%. I think they're done very, very well for what they are. Keep in mind, if you want to see the aspect of Star Trek in terms of a television series, the more popular the films are with the broader base audience and new viewers, the better, because that is all they are concerned about. Star Trek has traditionally had a loyal fan base. I'm going to say huge fan base. It's a loyal fan base. What they're looking for is a huge fan base, okay? They want more people watching. So the more people end up signing on to Star Trek based on the features, the better. And that's for all those who still like classic Trek. Things are going to change. They're made for, this is who they're made for. So not made for me and Bob, and they're made for the kids to watch, and that's to grow up with. That's what they're looking for. So
I think they still have that core Trek-ness about them, though.
I definitely have the same look and feel, and I think the series, as far as cameo, my character wasn't born yet, so I can't very well be on there, and I'd have to be on there wearing some very heavy makeup, which I'm not sure I want to do that either. So it depends on what happens. We'll see.
Anyway, guys, thank you very, very much.
Thank you, guys. Thank you.